Good afternoon, everyone. Guys, today we're going to be going through a top 10 preparations list. Now, this is going to be a little bit different because I don't want to sit here and tell you that you need X, Y, and Z because everybody's situation is going to be slightly different. So what I want to do in this video is give you guys 10 considerations about kit and equipment, and these are going to vary from person to person, depending on where you live, what your financial situation is, what your family situation is, where you live in the context where in the world you live, where you live in the context. Do you live in a flat? Do you live in a townhouse? Do you live on a farm? You know, depending where you live, all these things are going to be slightly different. So before we go on, guys, I want to just throw in a few caveats. So first of all, those like long metal things that stuff comes out of the end that you Americans love to play with, I'm not going to mention those at all, guys. If you can get them, fine. In the United Kingdom, where most of my viewers are, you can't get them. The only thing I will say on those things that go bang and bad stuff comes out the end is you need to understand what your task is. So I've seen a lot of videos about, you know, guys in these clubs going out at the weekends doing CQB, close quarter battle. Guys, the reality is in a SHTF situation when everything's gone down and there's marauders and it's Mad Max style, guys, and I don't mean to burst anybody's bubble, unless you've done that sort of dynamic entry with the military, it's not going to be. You don't even attempt to do it. You and some bros, you know, it's just not going to work. It's going to be absolute carnage. You know. In fact, I say avoid doing it. Try and minimize, you know, if you've got no other option, then of course, you know, you may need to make dynamic entry into a building. What I'm saying is the military training that you get to get you up to that standard, to go into a room, to do dynamic entry, to do room clearance, guys, it's ridiculous. You know, it's intense. It's hard work. You do it when you're cold, when you're wet, when you're hungry. You do it till failure. You do it till you don't get it wrong. And then you're allowed to go into a building and do dynamic entry. So I've seen a lot of these clubs doing, you know, this sort of playing stuff where they go in with blanks and they're all cool. The reality is, guys, warfare isn't like that. Combat isn't like that. You're always stressed. It's always dark. You've never got the right kit and equipment. You're always improvising. And unless you've been stress tested, don't even think about it, guys. Try and get one of those long bang things that stuff comes out of the head. Try and get one of those with a decent range, and try and concentrate on getting a really small group in at a distance, because you're going to be more effective at that range. Going into buildings, guys, pretending you're doing Call of Duty, just forget about it, guys, unless you've had really intensive military training. Similar sort of thing with medical. I'm not going to mention medical equipment, guys, or any kit and equipment in this video, because, you know, I can talk about medical equipment, and I've done a lot of medical training up to a really high standard. And I understand that the medical kit and equipment, it's nothing without the training. Equally, I understand that the training is more important than the equipment. You know, when you start your medical, when you start on a patrol medics course, you do a long range patrol medics course, you will do a regimental RMA3, whatever that stands for. You then go away and you're another type of patrol medic. You then go and do attachments to hospitals, to A&E, accident emergency. What you learn really quickly is it's the basic stuff done well that has the most significant outcome. All this quick clot, you know, gauze, bandages, Silex, all that sort of stuff, guys. You know, it works, but it's not as good as knowing how to use it. Knowing how to use this kit and equipment is more important than, you know, having a fancy bag with all the kit and equipment. I'm not going to really touch on fitness. Fitness is one of those things where you can always be fitter. Oh, I can run a marathon in 15 minutes. Yeah, well done. Try and run it in 14. Oh, I can run a mile in sub 5 minutes. All right, can you get sub 4 minutes? You know, it doesn't really matter where you are in your fitness. You know, everybody's fitness can be better. So I don't want to sit here and say you should be up to this standard. Everybody should be up to a better standard of fitness. And what I don't want to talk about in this video, guys, is cost. everybody's going to be at a different situation. Something that's expensive for Elon Musk is not, something that's not expensive for Elon Musk will be really expensive for me. Likewise, people are in different financial situations. What I want to do is give I don't really want to say you should buy a load of kit, although there's one piece of equipment I would ridiculously recommend buying because of the utility. So that's it, guys. Firearms, I said it. I hope the video doesn't get banned. Firearms, I said it again. Medical, fitness, and cost. I don't really want to talk about those in this video. What I will say, guys, if you're strapped for time, then you're looking at a quick fix for this. Water. Get yourselves lots of water. That's it, guys, okay? Get yourself lots of water. That's it. You can be done. Now, if you want to stay around for the rest of the video, guys, my top 10, I'm going to give them now. In fact, before we go on, guys, I'm just going to talk about this. This is it's a radio that I've got. Not only is it a radio, it's a torch, it's a battery charger, and it has a solar panel. Now, the fantastic thing about this, if I can get it open, the fantastic thing about this, excuse me, is the fact that it has a hand crank on it. Now this hand crank, you can wind this up and you don't need batteries for this thing. It really is fantastic, guys. I've got one of these. It's in my kitchen. I keep it under the kitchen sink. It's fantastic. If all the internet goes down and we get attacked by whoever, there's going to be a radio signal, guys. So I highly recommend you get one of these, guys. It's got a torch on the front. It's got a radio. I'm not going to turn it on, but it works. A solar panel at the top. You can charge it also by USB, and you can use this to charge your mobile device. What I will say, guys, we do have these, and this is not a pun. If you can find these anywhere, guys, go and get them, because I can't find them anywhere. The only place I've managed to find this is we've got these on our showcase, guys. If you follow us on the other platform, it's the same name. Search that on TikTok. On our showcase, you've got them there. They're really cheap. They're like, I can't remember what the price is, but they're ridiculously cheap. I can't find these in the stores in the UK, guys. That is the only thing I would say is like, is something everyone should have. Just one of those under your kitchen sink. It's a fantastic thing to have. So, guys, let's begin. First of all, the first thing, you need to understand the threat. So what is the threat? Now, this threat is going to be different if you live in Eastern Ukraine, if you live in Poland, if you live in Romania, to if you live in the United Kingdom. So if you live in the United Kingdom, the biggest threat to us on the ground now, it's attacks from sabotage, attacks on our utilities, and cyber warfare. They're the threats. So all the kit and equipment, anything you want to prepare, you need to think, right, that is the greatest threat. The second thing is we need to consider the climate. What climate are we operating in? You've got hot countries, you've got cold countries, you've got countries like the United Kingdom, which is not hot, it's not cold, it's just miserable. So depending on your climate is going to depend what kit and equipment you have. So, if you're thinking about a grid down situation and the power goes off, it makes no sense you guys buying thermal underwear if it's really hot and it's the air conditioning you need on. Likewise, on the counter to that, it makes no sense trying to keep your water cold or your food cold, or your freezers on if you already live in a cold country. So you need to understand what climate you're operating in, what the climate around you is. With climate, I also go with political climate as well, because different countries are different. Right now, the political climate in the United States is a lot different to the political climate in Georgia, for example. So you've got to understand what the climate is, because that's going to affect your movements, and it's going to affect everything when we come onto it and when we come to the last point, which is actually 11, guys, not top 10. So the next thing we need to think about is your environment. So by environment, what I mean is where you live now. So we've talked about, the threat, we've talked about the climate. Where do you live? Do you live in a rural area? Do you live in a city? Most people in the United Kingdom live in an urban area or a semi-rural, or a semi-rural area. Not that many people actually live in the countryside. And even if you do go out to the countryside, it's still kind of a built-up area because, you know, there's not that many isolated houses. There's little hamlets, little villages. So nobody really in the United Kingdom is operating out in the, way out in the woods, in the wherever. But that's what I mean by the environment. So location then. So location is everything. And you've got to understand what's around you, what's in and around your local location. Do you have a farm near you? Do you have, a sufficient water supply? You know, do you have raw materials like a woods, a forest, something that you can use if times are hard, if things get bad? You know, all these things are just, looking at your environment, looking at where you live, looking at what's the most likely things to happen in and around your area of, I say area of operating, but we're civilians now, so we don't have areas of operation. We have, what would we have if you're a civilian? I don't know, guys. I'll think of something and put it in the comments. So that's what I'm, with those first four, that's what I want to talk about. Now, the fifth consideration I want you guys to think about is the group. In the military, it'd be the grouping system. Now, what group are you planning to be responsible for? So when you think about your threat, the climate, the environment, the location that you're operating in, you've now got to think about and consider the group that you're operating in with. You know, is it your family? Who are your family? Who do we really mean by our family? I mean, I've got a friend down the road and he keeps phoning me up saying, listen, Sean, if anything happens, I'm coming in your cellar. And I'm like, listen, mate, you are definitely not. I mean, not a chance. But I know the reality is he's probably going to be knocking on my door and I'm going to have to let him in. And I understand that. So that's not just him. That's him. It's his wife. It's his two kids. And probably the dog Louis, if he comes. So you understand that already, you know, my considerations are, they're growing, and you need to understand what group you're going to be responsible for, because this is going to dictate everything. Now, the first thing, like I said right at the beginning, you need to get is water. If you don't understand the threat, if you don't understand the climate, if you don't understand the environment that you're operating in, if you don't understand the location and the group, how much water are you going to get? Am I just going to get 3 liters of water for myself for one day? Well, that's no good, is it? What if I've got me plus 4 other people, a dog, my family, additional family members? They're all going to need water because, they will need water. And if I don't prepare it now, then they're going to ask for mine, and then that's going to be detrimental to me. Equally, if you know your environment and you know down the road there's a natural spring, and I know not many people will have this, but if you know there's a natural spring or a water source and you have the means of purification, the means of filtering, makes no sense for you to, to consider all this bottled water when you've got a natural source right on your doorstep. But with water, guys, I would always, always, always plan for 3 liters of water per person per day. I don't care what anybody says. That is what you need, and you do need to drink that much water. I've been in a situation in northeast Syria in a place called Amuda. I was stuck there for like just over a day. I had 2 liters of water, and honestly, the psychological problems that gives you is absolutely phenomenal, especially when I drank that in the first, the first hour or something, before I realized nobody was coming I couldn't get in touch with anyone. So the next thing is food. Now, what do we mean by food? I've done lots of courses all over the world, and one of the things that astonishes me is the difference in packing food between men and women. So like a man, he will say, no, I only need 1 Mars bar a day, I'll be good. Yeah, little, that's all right in a time of emergency. And like women will be packing bits of jam and bread and all sorts of stuff. Now, I don't know what the answer is, but what I will say, I don't know what the answer for you is. That's what I'm saying, because these are all going to affect, the threat, the climate, the environment, the location, and the group. What I will say on food is make sure you if you're going to buy food, if you're going to, if you're going to buy food and store it, make sure it's food that you eat and you like eating it. Otherwise, you're not going to eat it. It's going to be a waste of time. It's going to be, it's literally going to be a waste of money. Now the reason I'm saying this, and I know what people are saying. Oh, if it's the end of the world, I'll eat anything. No, you won't. When I was in Iraq in 2003, we had a lot of press. Well, I think it was ITV and BBC attached to us at various points. And there was no access to cold water. The only water we had was hot water. Now, you can imagine what the temperature of the water is in southern Baghdad in the summer of 2003. The only water we had was really, really hot. Now, the press, they just weren't drinking it, and they were going down with dehydration because they were not drinking it. And that's what I'm getting to you guys with, with food. Make sure if you're storing food, try and start for a minimum of 3 meals per day per person. And again, whatever that is different. Big people are going to eat more than small people. Right now, when times are good, and although the price of things in the supermarket right now are going up, guys, can you imagine if there's a global conflict of an industrial scale? Can you imagine how quickly the prices are going to go up? Not only that, you're going to have to double that in with the fact that everybody's going to be competing for the same types of food. You're going to get the Karen factor at the tills, and she's going to believe all of a sudden that she's all of a sudden overnight she's the world's foremost knowledgeable person on how much food you guys should be eating. So right now, when the time is good, go and get it, guys. It's never going to be as cheap anymore as it is now. The price of everything is always going to go up. Yes, of course, you may get some reductions in prices depending on X, Y, and Z. But in general, prices tend to go up. So that's the way things are going, guys, And as long as there's more people on the world, and in the United Kingdom, we have like this war on farming. So the price of food is inevitably going to go up. So we can't even consider food and water until we've considered the other things. And guys, what I will do, I will put all these in the description below. So number 8 then, clothing and footwear. Guys, I am a bit of a skinflint when I buy clothes, especially when I'm going away to work. I'll buy the cheapest clothes that I can because I don't mind getting them lost. I don't mind if I have to leave them. I don't mind if I have to leave a jacket in a hotel because I'm, evacuating. When it comes to shoes, boots, I'm like really fastidious about what footwear I wear because I know that if I have to run in my boots, in my shoes, if I have to run in something, I know how different it is running in shoes that are uncomfortable, footwear that's uncomfortable, and footwear that's comfortable. And also, you've got to look at the threat, climate, environment, location before you consider what footwear you're going to have. Obviously, footwear in the middle of the desert is going to be footwear to the middle of the jungle. So you've got to understand this, guys. When it comes to clothes, I would always have, at least in like your preparation kit, a clean set of clothes and just have them there. Just have them there. Don't touch them. Just have them there for an emergency. Likewise, guys, with boots, have a good pair of boots that you can run in. There's no point in having footwear, these fancy footwear, the really big things that have got all the fur on them, if you can't run in them. Because guess what? Everybody runs. You're either running to catch something or you're running away from something. Predators run, prey runs. Guys, whichever one you are, I hope you're all predators, but sometimes even predators have to run. So now we're going to talk about a Bugout bag. And I keep saying, guys, you need an urban survival kit. And in that urban survival kit, you literally need your documentation, perhaps a spare cash card, spare phone, means to charge your mobile devices up. Where is it? Maybe one of these if you can. But and we've got to keep these urban survival kits. I'm not really one of these people who talk about, having loads of kit and equipment, because if you live in the United Kingdom, you're never going to be far away from that equipment. You're never going to be hundreds of miles away from a town or a city. You're never going to be, realistically, in the United Kingdom, in England, I don't think you can be more than 10 miles away from a settlement of some sort. So, we talk about, a grab bag and an urban survival kit. So that's what I'm talking about, guys. And you need to make them up yourself. You need to think, right, okay, if I have to leave my house and go to temporary accommodation right now, what is it I need? Spare phone, spare charger, tablet, battery pack, lights, the basic stuff you would need. And that's the sort of stuff you would have in an urban survival kit. Then you need to consider bug out or bug in. Now, we all know what bug out is. It's when you get your little backpack and you go running in the woods with your little saw, and then in 2 years' time, somebody comes and you've got you've got a whole infrastructure of tree houses and people making arrows, and you've got livestock, and you're stood there at the top with your big beard and a staff, and you've made a civilization according to, what is it, Dunbar's number. None of that's going to happen, guys, really. If we have to bug out, what I mean by that is, and this is part of, it's one of the last considerations. So if you need to bug out, It may be the case that judging on the threat from number one, you may see the threat. If you live in one of these locations that is prone to civil unrest, it's prone to rioting, you may think, okay, in a grid down situation, this area is going to go crackers. This area, say there's the one in Leeds, what's it called, Har Hills, that's always rioting. If you live in and around that area and there's a grid down situation, for example, can you remember when we did the video that the police are training to operate without GPS? Can you imagine if that happens, if there's a grid down situation and the police cannot get out? Can you imagine estates and places like Har Hills that are prone to the civil unrest? And you live near that area, you will want to bug out. So you're going to have a bug out location. You're going to have to know where to go. This means you're going to have to speak to your family, and you're going to have to understand where you go and how you get there. Also, if you live in a location it's just not feasible for you to do that. Maybe you live at the top of a flat somewhere or whatever, and you think, you know what, for us to bug out, if all the streets were on fire, it would be absolutely carnage. So what we're going to do is we're going to bug in. So that means you have all your kit and equipment in with you, and you can, where if you live in a flat, for example, consider how you would live, how you would survive if you had no running water, no gas, and no electricity. And that's how you need to plan from that standpoint. And number 11, guys, I know I said it was going to be a top 10, but it's a top 11. Number 11, have a plan. Talk about it now with your group. Talk through it with your group. They may think you're crazy. That's fine. Say to them, listen, guys, okay, if this happens, shall we have the conversation? And just try and get that conversation with those people in and around you. It may be the case that you may decide that, okay, well, what we'll do, instead of having this conversation now, we'll wait till this happens. And whatever these triggers are, they're for you to decide among your family. But whatever those triggers are, guys, you need to talk about them now, and you need to understand what to do in the event of said event. Have a lost communications plan. Obviously, you've got, the radio down there that you can listen into emergency broadcasts. But what I mean by a lost communications plan, imagine now all communications goes down. What are your family going to do? Is everyone going to locate a specific house? Is everybody going to make the way to Uncle John's farm who lives in the country? Is everybody going to try and get to Mike and Teresa's flat? They've got a penthouse in the city centre. Where's in an emergency of a lost comms, and I mean grid down, what is everyone going to do? Because if everybody's like four sheets to the wind, everybody's out searching for everybody, nobody will find anyone. You need a place that everybody comes back to. You need secure means of travel, all this sort of stuff. You need to understand what to do in the case of it. In the military, you go through lost comms plans, and it is, you go through what to do in case of lost communications, because it is a big thing. If you're on a radio and that radio is your only lifeline to helicopters to come pick up, you need to know what to do in case you lose communications. Maybe that's move back to the last known place you guys were together and wait there for an hour, then go back to the last known place you guys were known and make your way back. You need a series of rendezvous. So, for example, if you've got I gave you the example, what was it? Uncle John, who's got a farmhouse in the country. We say, right, if everything goes wrong, if we've all lost each other, everybody under their own steam make their way back to Uncle John's house in the in the countryside. And that's kind of how we need to formulate a top 10 preparations list. But again, guys, we need to understand those first key elements, threat, climate, environment, location, group. And then we can think about how much water we need, how much food we need, clothing, footwear. Do we have grab bags? Who has grab bags? Does everyone need a grab bag? We need to understand, right, are we bugging out? Under what circumstances are we going to bug out? Under what circumstances are we going to bug in? And always have a plan. Always have an immediate action plan, a lost comms plan, and just, a generalized plan and a standard operating procedure so people understand what to do and what not to do. And the long things that the stuff comes out at the end that go kaboom, bang, and you know what I'm talking about. Those things, medical, fitness, and finance, those things I didn't want to touch because it's very difficult for me to say you need this much money, because it's gonna depend, it's gonna depend on so many things. Like if it's a total grid down situation, money will be tender for an amount of time, but after a while it'll become worthless. Fitness, you always need to be fitter. Medical equipment, it's going to depend on your own level of training, your own level of competency. I'm not going to sit here and tell people how to put a tourniquet on, how to secure an airway, because unless I'm there and I can touch you and move your hands around and say, no, try this, what about this, try this, no, do it this way, it's going to be no use. Equally with the things that go bang and the stuff comes out the end, I would love to be able to take you guys on the range and do some tactical stuff, but unfortunately we live in the United Kingdom and there are the laws here. Anyway, guys, how long have I been going on for now? That is 27 minutes, guys. That is it. I tried to keep this under 20 minutes. I didn't. I'll put the 11 list in the description below, and I'll put a little bit of a blurb about each one. But these top 10 lists, guys, how to prepare yourself for what's coming, how to prepare yourself for a global conflict of an industrial scale, guys, these are the considerations. If you want me to do a more in-depth about anything in general, guys, just let me know and I'll do that video as quickly as possible. But I wanted this to be a generic video, a general video, to give you guys things to think about that you may or may not have already thought about. Anyway, guys, I'm going to back to grid. I'll get you guys another video later.